Hi, everybody. Welcome back and welcome to the new year. This episode and the next 3 episodes that we do, I want to welcome you because we're doing a new format. We got a great question. So we're going to call this a Q&A. Basically, we got a great question out on the channel asking about the difference between human outlining, human will, and being willing. And a participant out on YouTube asked that question. So we thought it's got kind of a little bit of involvement here. So we're going to spend 3 sessions really distinguishing those 3 things. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next, this week, next week, and the following week. So our session today is called Why Goals and Resolutions Do Not Work. And we're gonna really explore this because here we are in the new year, and it's all about what are your goals, what are your resolutions for the new year and the coming year, and what are you going to create this year, and all that kind of stuff. So I want to welcome Betty. Welcome, Betty, to the new year.
Thank you.
And what are your goals and resolutions? No, just kidding. But at any rate, so what we want to look at is that science ongoingly reveals revelations and visions for improvement as the fulfilling of an idea. An idea living, as we explored at the end at the sessions last fall, include a flexibility that allows new identifying language to emerge as the current expression of one's present perfection. And the whole thing here is idea really does lead the way. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And if you missed any of the sessions, you can go back and listen to any of them from last fall all the way through the end of the year, where we covered Mrs. Laird's book or pamphlet, What is the Idea? So any of those sessions will get you in the game of what we're talking about when we talk about idea. But after all, in metaphysical science, essentially it's all about understanding that everything done in the conceptual realm of belief is done for the identity of our divinity, since in the concept, reality or divinity is the concept. So we're not scientists when we outline one course of human action as good and another course as bad, or one as better than another. And we do this all the time in our living. I know I do this all the time. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Science is continually revealing a new life more satisfying than the old. And this is felt intuitively on the personal belief level as restlessness, unhappiness, discontent. But those feelings don't affect the fact that what we're feeling in reality is love, supplying the human need for self-conscious identity of our divinity. So those were a lot of words, and now we're going to back it up and we're going to look at this. And I would say, if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to ask those in the comments. So type those into the comments. We will get them. They'll be a little bit delayed, but do that because we love the questions. We love the comments, and we're going to do as many sessions in this upcoming set of these upcoming months from actual questions that you have that you post on a video or whatever, so that we can just address that and dive deeper.
Yeah, the questions we're talking about came in on the YouTube.
Yes.
Came into the office. They didn't do it during the chat session.
Right. They came in, they just posted them. So you can do that. And we get notified when comments are posted. So feel free to do that. Also, if you're on our mailing list, on our email list, in the email, you could just reply to that email with your questions, and then we would get your questions that way. So that's one thing that I want to say. Now, a little bit about the Institute of Metaphysical Science. That's who sponsors our live streams. It was established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. Our website is scientificmetaphysics.org. So again, this is our Q&A, and we're going to be talking about why goals and resolutions don't work. Is there anything you want to say before we dive in to this week's session?
Not particularly, no.
All right. Well, I know that when we started, go ahead.
The introduction that you read was from Margaret Laird's book, Christian Science Explored. And she's pretty consistent in that treatment. Actually, as human beings, we tend to think that one course of action is better than another. And from the human point of view, one course of action may be better than another. And that's okay too. But don't kid yourself that any of it is other than your own best view of reality. And the only way that you can make a difference in your life and in your experience of living is in being accurate about what's actually going on with you, looking like a human being doing daily stuff. Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, when we started talking about this, the question was distinguish human outlining. And I was like, okay, human outlining is like goals and resolutions, like you knowing the way you want to see it at some point in the future, like what your life needs to look like down to the gnat's eyelash. And that is one of the things that we want to talk about. Because even if you look in Stumbling on Happiness is a book by Daniel Gilbert that I read a couple years ago. And essentially what he says is, and proves it out and discusses it fully, is that from who we are right now, we make decisions thinking we know that who we're going to be at some point in the future will be satisfied when. And we have a whole picture of what that satisfaction would be. And when we get there, we're not satisfied. The person we are when we reach that point in our life looks around and goes, eh. And he explores, well, why are we so bad at understanding who our future self, what will satisfy our future self, what will make our future self happy, or make us happy in the future. So it's like,
you never do that.
Huh?
And you can never do that.
Right.
Because you have no way to know who you'll be down the trail.
Right. Right. And as we were exploring this, and sometimes I wish we would get our discussions on camera, but we don't. But as we were discussing this, you said, Betty, you said what Margaret Laird said about just because you can't eat chicken soup or chicken today. What was that quote?
Oh, she says we change instantly all the time. It is that we exist moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. And it's not it looks like it's a flow. It looks like it has continuity. And it does because of the time, the way time flows. It doesn't because of actual existence. We actually live. And we're gone and we live and we're gone and we live and we're gone and we live and we're gone and so on. It's always a brand new you every instant. You have no real way to connect one with the other. Like yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here. Even the last minute is gone and the next minute isn't here. So what I'm right now being is who I am. And I don't know what the next minute will be. I think I do because I think I will drag it forward. But actually, I come back just exactly the same, but slightly changed because who I am never stays the same. It's in a moment by moment by moment emergence of being.
Right.
And so Margaret said, well, if you can't eat chicken today because somebody says you're allergic, can't eat chicken, doesn't agree with your system. She says, because they said that doesn't mean you can't eat chicken tomorrow because you're not going to be that same person tomorrow. Now, think about that. Think of the freedom. Oh, I'm allergic. Okay. But tomorrow I'll eat chicken. It's a silly example, but it's actually functional. I should not the reason I don't eat chicken tomorrow is because I believe that I'm allergic and that I can't have chicken.
Yep.
I can actually drop that at any moment because whatever it was that was allergic is long gone and it's only being carried forward by my belief system.
Right.
Because that Betty doesn't exist anymore. And the Betty today might be free as a breeze with anything.
Right.
Except for her beliefs about it. And they are very limiting.
Anything that follows because ... I think is a reason. And any of the reasons that you have, well, today you might have them, but tomorrow will you have them?
Yeah.
And the more and they carry on. And I'm not to say that you don't have all that, because you do. It's not to say not to set goals. It's not to say not to have resolutions, but be idea focused with it.
And be flexible. Be willing to say, oh, I brought that into my experience because that's where I am right at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is the best way I can see it.
Yep.
And on you go. Not because you're allergic. That one is gone. You have to create a new one if you want a new one.
Right. So it's an interesting kind of fine line, because you're going to play fully, you're going to live fully, and then it's, how do we limit ourselves? And the limitless, infinite divinity that's present, we limit through our beliefs, our judgments, our opinions, our druthers, what we'd rather see, the pictures we have of how life ought to be. And we were talking about it, and I'm like, it's like when you go to the refrigerator and you open the door and then you look for what's not there, and then you're mad when you don't find it. It's like that. We set ourselves up, right? So we want to kind of take a look at this whole thing called outlining. So we have some things set up. Let's dive in. And first, I know we mentioned that this is Christian Science Re-Explored, and we got a question. Is Christian Science Re-Explored the same as We Are the World We Walk Through?
The We Are the World We Walk Through is an abridgment of Christian Science Re-Explored. In the book, Margaret explores her personal life and history and so on, and we didn't leave that in because we wanted a textbook that we could work with. So basically, yes, they are the same. There is more in the Christian Science Re-Explored than there is in We Are the World. Right.
And then some of the language was modified too in the We Are the World version. Yeah. So some of that was modernized and brought up. So they are different, but they're the same. Okay. So in Christian Science Re-Explored on 171.22, and if you have that, there are line numbers and everything else. So it makes it really nice to be able to quote. In Christian Science Re-Explored on page 171, line 22, Mrs. Laird wrote, "That which exists divinely cannot be improved." Think about that. That which exists divinely cannot be improved. New humanhood, as perfect as the divinity which constitutes it, would be experienced more quickly if humanity would refrain from outlining, refrain from you humanly trying to move the billiard balls around in your life and the furniture around to get it to line up exactly the way you think humanly it ought to look.
Yeah, or to put it another way, to try to fix tomorrow to suit today's thoughts. Because when you get to tomorrow, you're not going to be the today thought you think you are.
Right, exactly. And fixing in the practice of metaphysical science is the conscious acknowledgement of spiritual facts. It's not running around trying to get this to do that, to do something else and get things to line up. Now, here's the thing. Your human doing may look like a lot of that, but you got to be idea conscious.
Well, you got to honor that with this is the way it looks right now. I have no idea what it'll look like 10 minutes from now.
Right. So when you intuitively know, oh, I can take this action, then take the action.
Yeah.
Living
intuitively actually is a gift.
Yeah.
You're right with your own being and what's up for you.
Right.
So, that's great. but don't try to create tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself.
Right. So what would you say? So what would you say about goals? What, if I have a goal and we're going for, in my business, we have goals and we have, 90-day plans and all that kind of stuff. What would you say to that would be the science viewpoint of engaging with that?
I'd say maybe so, maybe not.
Yeah. So be free with it.
Yeah. From right this moment, that's the way it looks to me. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But I wouldn't be stuck with insisting that it appear that way. I would be flexible to see what it looks like now and now and now.
Well, I'm reminded when I was a kid and I had my braces. And one of the things that I was looking at was I wanted my braces off before I went back to school. I was in college at the time and I had them on forever in a day. And I was going back to the beginning of summer and I was like, I want them off. And so I'm going to have my braces. I'm going to do whatever's needed. I don't know what it is, but whatever's needed. My teeth are going to make whatever movement they need to make, because when I go back in the fall, I want my braces off. Now that wasn't outlining, was it?
Yep. But it was also wishful thinking. But what you did, I will remind you, because I was there, what you did was pay attention. And you paid attention to the suggestion that your teeth couldn't move that quickly. And you saw no reason why they couldn't move right now. And you really were very good about all that. And she did everything the dentist said to do, by the way. And she kept exactly what she was supposed to be doing in place. And she kept saying, can we take the braces off now? And the dentist would say no, and no, and no, and no. And she kept right on. She said, well, they're going to come off by the end of summer. And so the dentist would look and he'd say, well, they seem to be improving, but no, you can't take the braces off. And on she'd go. And by the end of summer, she went to her original dentist. Actually, she hadn't gone back to him for a long time, but she went back to him for something. Anyway, he looked at them and thought everything looked wonderful. And she said, can I take my braces off? He said, well, often we recommend that you just leave them in place for a while. But yeah, you could take them off. She said, good, take them off.
And he made me a positioner that I could sleep in that would move.
He said, at night, do that. It'll hold the movement that's been taking place.
So it isn't about not setting goals. It's about who you be in the setting of them. Is that it? Or in the living through that? So explain that better.
Well, I think from your idea orientation as you were growing up, what you were willing to do, what you actually put into practice was the immediacy of perfection. See, we live and move and have being as a reflection of the God idea. So you were willing to say, there's no reason why I should have to wear braces at all. But I've got them, so okay, let's see what it takes to get rid of them. And you were kind of really willing to do whatever that took.
Yeah.
And you were very obedient about whatever the dentist asked. And they were confident that I would not let you take them off, They kept cheering you on, saying, well, it's moving a little, and so on. And, I didn't know either, actually, whether they were going to come off by the end of summer. Right. But I could see that there was no reason why they shouldn't.
Right. And the moment that I knew they were going to come off was when we were at Marie Callender's and I was having a ham stack on rye toasted, and they were about this thick at the time. They were the best ham sandwiches. And I took a bite, and I had never, ever been able to bite through a ham sandwich. There's all that fat in there, and I was always pulling it out, and they were falling apart. And I took a bite, and I cleanly bit through the ham sandwich. And I looked at my mom, and I said, my braces are coming off. I just bit through a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
And that is when I had agreement about that I could take them off.
Yeah.
So as we move on, so it's not it's not to set the goals. It's not to have that, but it's to maintain your openness. Is that a good way to say it?
Well, it's to recognize that what's going on is divine being the way you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Instead of a two-legged animal struggling to fix something.
Okay.
Because what's happening is perfection is the ground of being.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is seeing it as you can.
Yeah.
And it increases with your willingness, if I can use that word, but with your giving up the outlining and saying, perfection's what's showing up. It's not that I have to fix the two-legged animal. It's the perfection is what's showing up, and I'm seeing it more clearly. And it takes care of the human position.
Right. Yep. Okay, cool.
But all of your stuff comes up that way.
Yeah.
Everything you do has value because there's something about the divinity shaping your ends, if I can quote Shakespeare. There's something about that divinity that presents your humanity with each step along the way to see that divinity show up.
Yeah.
And that's actually what human living is all about, self-discovering.
Okay, good. And we've got a question here by Julie French, who's asking, what is it in ourselves that make us think that we know best about what is right for us tomorrow?
Because this is another word twister, I guess I'd say. But the reason you do that is because you do know. You are the authority in your life, but it isn't Betty. It's the divinity that's present, looking like Betty.
Yeah.
But I do know. I always know what's best for me, but not Betty. When Betty knows what's best, she's in a world of trouble. So I let go of the Betty and I say, well, wait a minute. Perfection is the ground of being. I'm going to have exactly what I need to have. And it's going to be exactly right, perfect, supportive, all of it.
Right. Right.
Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was good, I think. Now, in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy on 269.14 says, metaphysics resolves things into thoughts and exchanges the objects of sense for the ideas of soul.
Yep.
So say more about that related to goals and resolutions and outlining.
As a student of science, there's no accident that something emerges in my life, humanly speaking,
right,
that I may not have had before. And I want to have the courage, maybe, or the good sense, maybe, to say, look for the value here. What's going on here, Betty? I'll say, this could not come up in my life if it didn't have value for me. So I'm going to keep looking at it. What's the idea going on here? And allow it to be instead of fussing with it.
Right.
And keep walking on because that value is going to show up.
Okay.
Let's go turn off that thing.
Okay. There we go. Phones and everything else. You can tell we haven't done this for a while, y'all, because we've got dog barking, phone ringing, and all that. So bear with us as we get back in the swing of 2023 and live streaming. Okay, now she's on her way back. I know it. So in Mind is the Athlete on page 140, you wrote, Betty, as areas of intuition and spirituality are opened up to inquiry, you will be discovering yourself at a whole new level beyond the accepted physical model of you that shows up in the mirror. And I just want to reiterate that that accepted physical model of you isn't just this that you see in the mirror. It's your circumstances, your attitudes, your point of view of your human experience.
Including the world of people that you think you know that are your own being, the only way you see it. Because divine being is entire, complete, fulfilled, satisfied all the time.
Yeah.
And it shows up for me the nature of infinity, which divine being has, it shows up for me as many people, a whole world full of people and ideas all over the place. Some of them directly associated with me, some of them just filling the cracks out there in what I call my world. But it's all my own being. Being is whole and perfect and complete all the time. And it is that divinity that has your humanity show up, doing what it does, looking as it does, etc. And your perception of your divinity is what makes the difference in your human living.
Right. All right. Now back to Christian Science Re-Explored on page 18326. There's this quote from Margaret Laird: "In living the idea self-consciously."
I don't know what does that. Turn it off.
In living the idea self-consciously, a doing and a done evolves that might be called a miracle. So that's by Laird in Christian Science Re-Explored. So talk about that a little bit. In living the idea self-consciously, a doing and a done evolves that might be called a miracle.
Yep. If you're living divinely aware, if I'm living myself aware that Betty is here because divine perfection is present, and this is my best view at the moment, and I call it Betty. If I'm actually living that consciously, all of my life is going to be miraculous, because I'm going to find everything is of huge value as I go along. And one thing after the other, you'll have problem solution appearing at the same time. Oh, could have been a problem, but here it is.
Right.
Oh, well, there's the answer. Where did I put my, well, there are my keys. Where did I lose my glasses? Oh, they're right there. That kind of thing. You'll have that experience so much. I have a friend that that actually was working with that idea after she'd been in a seminar we had, and she needed a parking place. And she saw that so clearly that the place opened up right where she was, and she pulled right in. And the funny joke about it all is that she has never had a parking problem since, and it's been several years. And so she was with a friend the other day, and they pulled in, and he says, "You're never going to find a place to park here." She says, "Shush, I always park." She pulled right up and parked.
Right. Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah.
And then when she made it into a thing that she can do, then she stopped finding the parking places. So then she had to get back with the idea. So it's that whole thing. It's idea. It's not this.
That's right. It hasn't got to do with parking. It has to do with who you're being.
Yeah, and it doesn't have anything to do with this either, with Kim or with Betty. It has to do with the idea.
Yeah, but there's nothing else going on but the way you're living it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we may not know humanly what to do, but because of our divinity, the science, the all-knowing mind, the intelligence that is truth, we are never without the information, the idea of what to do and how to do it. It's always there, always present, whether you have the eyes to see it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said, devotion of thought to an honest achievement makes the achievement possible.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many times that goes through my head as I'm working on things.
Yep.
All right. And then in your book, Mind is the Athlete, you say your world of experience shifts constantly as your perception of your eternal nature expands.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not the same person who started listening to this live stream
20 minutes ago or a half hour ago.
That's right. You're not the same person.
Yeah.
So your world of experience shifts constantly as your perception of your eternal nature expands. So when we can just be with what's going on, and not be so concerned with, oh my God, this is a huge problem. I've got to do X, Y, Z, and this isn't right, and that sucks, and blah, blah, blah. I was telling Mom, there's a gal that we've known for a really long time, and she was in a home, and we went to visit her, and because she had a stroke, and said, how are you? I hate it here. I hate it here. I hate the people here. I hate it here. So she got out of that, and she got into a mobile home park, right, where she had a roommate. So we went to visit her there. I said, how do you like your new digs? I hate it here. And I hate the guy too. I hate so-and-so and blah, 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 blah. And I looked at Mom and I just said, you take yourself with you wherever you go.
That's right.
And you may think over there is going to be better than over here. Like the grass is greener. That'll be better. But you take yourself with you. So you got to pay attention to your own seeing.
Well, the green is your green, and it goes with you wherever you go.
Right. All right. And in answering the question, who am I? As you enter an ever-shifting moment-by-moment discovery of qualities, values, strengths of which you were unaware, who you are is never static.
That's right.
You know, it may look
from one instant to the next, just like that, constantly, all the time, whether you think it or not. You are never the same, and you're not static ever.
right. Is it that your beliefs and opinions and judgments about whatever it is you're experiencing could make it seem like same old, same stuff, different day?
Sure. But it's all your own. You make that up.
Right.
It doesn't exist that way. You just make it up that way.
Okay. All right. Exactly.
We each make up our world.
That's right.
We
and
all
then
walk through.
Yep. And Margaret Laird in Christian Science Re-Explored also had this quote, quoting philosopher biologist John Scott Haldane, who said, the apparent evil and imperfection of the universe are no longer interpreted as evil, but only as imperfect apprehension.
Yep.
That's your point of view. Imperfect point of view, imperfect seeing.
Yep.
And that's it. Science and Health says spiritual perception brings out the possibilities of being, destroys reliance on aught but God, and so makes man the image of his maker in deed and in truth.
Yeah. And, you know, I think if Mrs. Eddy wrote that today, she would use other words than the word God, because that always implies like there's a person somewhere. And there isn't it. There's just an idea. It's just an idea. And she named them: life, truth, love, spirit, principle, mind, soul. That is the presencing constituting your being.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that as your conscious awareness, a huge difference evolves in your life.
Yeah.
Because you're no longer functioning as the thing you look like. You're functioning as the idea that has you be.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And you wrote in your book, the idea of one absolute spiritual reality, whole, complete, constituting all existence, both actual and seeming, is universal in scope and application. This idea is the foundation of the omniscient one all, which science explores.
Yep.
And then finally, the metaphysics of reality explores the oneness of being, which always includes its identity language. In other words, all the circumstances, people, places, and things in the world I walk through, all of that is included in the metaphysics of capital R reality. So one last word on goals and resolutions and what to just be mindful of.
Get a hold of a sense of yourself as other than the thing you see in the mirror. Just begin to be present to the idea that constitutes who you are. And everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. So between now and next week, just watch. What is it? If you have your goals and resolutions, what are you not open to that shows up? What are you open to? Because next week we discuss will, human will. And we'll get more into that next week. So that's the topic next week that we're going to dive into. Again, send us all your questions. Reply if you're on our email list. Reply to the email that you got about this session and give us all your questions. What really do you stumble in with your study of science and metaphysical science? What is it that is a question for you? What's a situation you're faced with? And let us know. Make a comment. Let us know your questions. And we want to include them because this is all about making sure it's clear, because it's the most powerful stuff for living, and for freedom and for experiencing that you can possibly get involved in. So at any rate, with that, we'll see you next week, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central. Have a great week. Welcome to 2023.